Committee will come to order. This is the subcommittee hearing of Water Resources and Environment of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Today we're having a hearing review of the fiscal year 2012 budget and priorities of the Environmental Protection Agency, impacts on jobs, liberty, and the economy. And before we get started, I want to, since it's our first sole meeting, we've had a couple joint committee hearings, but I would like to just take a minute or two and let the members kind of introduce themselves. And I guess we can start down there with the representative from Oklahoma.
I'll do that. James Langford, representative from Central Oklahoma. Oklahoma 5 is Oklahoma City.
Jeff Landry, Louisiana 3. That's the coastal area of Louisiana. A lot of water.
Jamie Herrera Butler, Washington State's 3rd Congressional District. We have the Columbia River and a lot of water as well.
Andy Harris, Maryland's 1st District, the Chesapeake Bay.
Well, this is the first chairman, Gary Miller from California's 42nd District.
Thank you. Let me introduce our ranking member, Representative Bishop.
Tim Bishop, New York 1, Eastern Long Island, also lots of water.
Representative Nick Rahal from West Virginia, ranking member of the full committee.
Representative Russ Carnahan from the St. Louis area along the Mississippi River.
Maisie Hirona from Hawaii, and we are totally surrounded by water.
Okay, again, I'd like to welcome everybody and our two guests from the EPA, but first I'll start off with an opening statement and of the committee here. I have a number of concerns about the Environmental Protection Agency's ongoing activities and plans in fiscal year 2012. These are issues I want the subcommittee to explore during this Congress and hold hearings on some of them when I think it would be helpful to members. First and foremost, I'm concerned about the proliferation of so-called guidance coming out of EPA in an attempt to short-circuit the process for changing agency policy without following a proper, transparent rulemaking process. Much of the so-called guidance amounts to being de facto rules instead of advisory guidelines. In addition, I note the exponential increase in regulations coming out of the EPA in recent months or planned for the near future related to the subcommittee's jurisdiction. Many of these regulatory efforts are based on questionable science at best and stand to substantially increase the regulatory burden for states, local governments, and businesses, especially small businesses. EPA is making a mockery of the administration's regulatory review initiative to reduce regulatory burdens in our country. These guidance and rulemaking efforts of concern include, but are not limited to, guidance to expand the scope of jurisdiction of the Clean Water Act, guidance on permitting of surface coal mining, EPA's recent veto of an existing permit for an ongoing mining operation, expanded regulation of stormwater, including post-construction site runoff, new development and redevelopment and existing development through retrofitting, numerical water quality standards for the state of Florida, numerical water quality standards for the entire Mississippi River Basin, and cooling water intake structures. I'm concerned that more regulations means more unfunded mandates to burden our cities and towns at a time when they need relief from these types of injustices. I'm concerned that the EPA seems to have a fondness for guidance as opposed to regulations and thus have found a backdoor way to get de facto rules in place without the transparency that is built into the formal rulemaking process of the Administrative Procedure Act. I'm concerned that the EPA has usurped state authority by effectively taking over the implementation plans for the Chesapeake Bay states and has expressed its intention to do the same elsewhere. I'm concerned that the requirement for numerical standards for the state of Florida is just the beginning, and other states will soon have a costly, job-killing requirements placed on them as well. I am concerned that while the President is imposing more regulatory burdens on communities, businesses, and citizens, he at the same time is calling for a reduction in spending for many of the programs that assist communities in their efforts to come into compliance with regulations. While the President is willing to increase enforcement spending, he is cutting spending for compliance assistance efforts. So what I have here is a federal agency that will add to the burden of rules and regulations, reduce programs to help folks come into compliance, but will also put more boots on the ground to track down those who cannot come into compliance with little or no benefit to the environment. This is a government at its worst, an agency cutting facilitators but increasing regulators. I want clean water as much as anyone, but I recognize that we have to have a strong economy so we can afford to invest in new programs that new regulations require. Today is not the day to put more burdens on the American people. We need to make significant progress in creating long-term jobs and a stronger economy before we can tolerate more expensive regulations. At this time, I'll turn it over to Ranking Member Representative Bishop.
Thank you very